Today's episode is brought to you by HERdacity. HERdacity is a nonprofit inspiring confidence in women to achieve their professional goals. For resources, networking opportunities, and a strong community of women, visit HERdacity.org to learn more.
Welcome to HERdacious, a podcast for audacious women. Welcome to HERdacious, the podcast for audacious women going along their career journey and looking for a little bit of support along the way. My name's Lorelei, and I am glad you chose to join us today, where we will discuss the importance of being an assertive leader. To join me in this conversation, I have Leanna Sauerlender, a 25-year-old entrepreneur who recently exited her first business venture, a $2 million nationwide dental industry software and consulting business. She has and continues to be focused on supporting female entrepreneurs who are looking to step out of their comfort zones and embrace risk in business. Hey, Leanna.
Hey, Lorelei. So excited to be here. I am a huge fan of the show, so glad to be on it.
I'm super glad to have you here. I'm really excited to discuss assertiveness and confidence for women because I think it is so key to moving forward strongly and successfully, specifically in business. Leanna, to kick off this conversation, help us define assertiveness and what that could look like in the workplace.
Absolutely. Assertiveness is something that I have worked on cultivating throughout my entire career. And what I really define it as is something that is characterized by your confidence and your ability to be bold in your behavior and your statements. And what it can look like is setting intention in the beginning of any sort of encounter where you're going to be working with other people in terms of what you're expecting from the scenario. So what you expect to receive, what you expect to clearly communicate to your counterpart, and what you expect as the end result in terms of what you are going to contribute and what they're going to contribute. I think that is the most important definition of what assertiveness means.
Love it. Give us some more practical, real life examples of being assertive in the workplace for anybody.
I think anyone can be assertive and work on their assertiveness, whether you are a leader or you are working as an intern. It really does not matter. You can step out and show assertiveness and take advantage of the situation. And what it really is allowing yourself to set those boundaries, like I mentioned, and then speak truly in ways that help you achieve whatever you're set out to do. So what that can look like is sitting in a meeting and an opportunity is presented to you and you decide to raise your hand and go after it, even though you're a little bit worried that you won't be fully able to achieve that or you don't necessarily have the skill set. It's putting yourself in that position where you're going to step out and be authentic in terms of what needs to be done in order for you to achieve your personal goals. And so other ways that this can be exemplified is by volunteering for things that really are going to help you pave the way to what your future goals are in your department or in your position at your company. It's claiming ownership over your accomplishments. So when you achieve something, or if you're going unrecognized for something that you know you contributed to a conversation or to an idea, it's taking responsibility and ownership of that accomplishment and making sure that you're recognized for it. It's talking to people who are in leadership positions in your corporation like people. I think it's learning that they are going to be learning just like you are, even though they're at a different stage of their career, and approaching people from that learning mentality of continuously trying to evolve in your career and in your position.
I heard you point out a few things that might require a little bit of vulnerability. Talk to us a little bit about that true expression of self that requires people to be vulnerable and authentic to themselves, which might not be what people expect.
Absolutely. Assertiveness is really understanding yourself and setting your own boundaries and goals in terms of what you want to get done. And the only way you can truly do that is by knowing yourself, knowing how you authentically respond in situations, and allowing yourself to be that person. And so one of the ways that that's really shown true for me in my own professional career is by allowing myself as a woman to exhibit more feminine qualities that often aren't really exemplified in female leaders or male leaders for that matter, in the workplace. For instance, when something is really exciting, expressing that. When you're saddened by something or you're feeling empathy for someone else, allowing yourself to express emotions like tears. These are all things that are authentic to me. And so when you're a woman and you're trying to be assertive, a lot of times it's just expressing exactly that aspect of yourself that isn't seen amongst other leaders in the organization, but is exactly who you are.
Oh my God, I love it so much. Okay, so you've told us a little bit about what assertiveness is. What is assertiveness not?
I think there are a lot of misconceptions about assertiveness, specifically for women in the workplace, because of a lot of factors. But what it's not is always being loud, always being exuberant, always stepping out and being extroverted, because a lot of times that's not natural. If that is who you are, then that's great. That's your authentic self. It's you to raise your hand and always blurt out exactly what you're saying in meetings.
Guilty.
But for a lot of people, they're more reserved and they're more mild mannered. And so being assertive doesn't necessarily mean you have to be that person. It also doesn't mean you have to be involved in everything, doesn't mean you need to take on more than you're capable of accomplishing. It's really not about chasing every opportunity or being front and center in every single scenario. It's about, again, knowing yourself authentically, knowing what you need to accomplish to achieve your goals, and putting yourself in a position where you can do just that.
In your past life, you created a brand from scratch. How did the ability to be assertive help you in that journey, especially given your age?
Right. Yeah, I think my age was a big factor in terms of how I approached my journey as a female entrepreneur. Starting the business that I started, I was 23 years old. It was a huge challenge to start a brand from scratch, create an image, and then sell that brand to people all across the country. So when my co-founder and I started our business from scratch, we had absolutely no brand recognition, no customers, no employees, and being assertive was extremely important in the cultivation of those things, because without assertiveness, there would have been no opportunity to create that initial partnership with the company who introduced us to our initial customers, to create the initial brand concept and sell that brand with persuasion to our customers. And so I think in the business world, specifically as an entrepreneur, if you are not assertive, you're going to struggle, because unless you're willing to step out of your comfort zone, get in situations where you find yourself uncomfortable, and give yourself the benefit of the doubt, you're going to have a really hard time accomplishing your goals. And I think specifically in my situation, being 23, starting a company, it could have been pretty easy to doubt myself. And I think that is extremely important to note, is that you can't necessarily go about judging yourself based on your accomplishments or your age or your qualifications in comparison to other people, because you're never going to be able to focus on exactly what you need to accomplish by doing that. And so specifically as a 23-year-old, I didn't think about my age when it came to hiring our first employees who were over the age of 40, or when it came to bringing on our first clients who were business owners who had been in the industry for years and years. I thought about what we needed to accomplish and how we needed to get it done. And I think that's super important in terms of not acknowledging your insecurities when you're focused on your goals.
Why does the ability to be assertive matter for women in general in the workforce?
I think assertiveness matters because it creates opportunity. It doesn't matter if you're an entrepreneur or if you're an intern or someone who just joined a firm in a mid-level position. If you are not assertive, you're not going to create all the opportunities that you may have been able to in that role. Sheryl Sandberg says in her book, you need to create the opportunity to sit at the table. That's so important, because in most cases, no one's going to create a spot for you at the table. You're going to have to literally pull out the seat and sit down yourself.
Right.
so many women just don't do that. And that's exactly why they're missing out on those opportunities. I think it's more than that in a lot of cases as well, though. It's about creating your own table, creating your own opportunity. And I think another huge aspect of why assertiveness is so important is that it does help you create those connections that are going to lead to future success. A lot of times women aren't necessarily able to create the same connections that people from different economic backgrounds or from different gender backgrounds are able to make because of generational ties.
Mm-hmm.
And so being assertive as a woman is extremely helpful because it helps you bridge that gap. It also teaches us what we're capable of, tests our limits, and it paves that path to leadership, to show courageousness, because being assertive does require being vulnerable. And I think vulnerability is one of the most important characteristics of someone's success in terms of leadership and assertiveness.
I can't tell you how many times a conversation comes back around to Brene Brown's work on vulnerability. That woman is the cornerstone of every woman's professional career in the past decade.
She's freaking awesome.
Well, we're going to take this moment to take an intentional sponsor break.
Hi, Barbie here from Moonray, husband and wife indie pop duo. If you enjoy the intro music, we invite you to listen to our debut EP, Honeymoon, streaming now on all platforms. Visit www.moonray-music.com for more.
And we're back with Leanna Sauerlender talking about assertiveness in workspaces. Now, Leanna, I know, and I know, that assertiveness can be especially challenging for women due to a few social and cultural double standards. So how did you and how can we grow into our ability to be assertive?
Absolutely. Let me just start with a quick story about my personal journey to assertiveness. When I had first graduated from college, I was eager to take advantage of any leadership opportunity that I could. And when I entered into my first role, my manager actually offered the opportunity for me to present on the power of social media and how that can impact businesses. And of course, I accepted, and I presented a presentation to our entire department. Super excited about the success of how the presentation came across to everyone. And then after the presentation was over, there was a gathering at a bar, just a workplace gathering, where all of our colleagues went. And I was talking to one of my male colleagues about the presentation, and he kind of started dismissing some of the concepts that I was talking about, bashing it, telling me that, social media wasn't ever going to be something that was going to be helpful in the world of business, and that it was a waste of time. I know, right? We laugh at that now. And because of that, I started, just defending my point that I had already made in the presentation with more statistics and information, things that just backed my presentation.
Mm-hmm.
And he, under his breath, muttered the word bitch and called me a bitch in that social setting, which was shocking to me. And I honestly didn't know exactly how to respond. And so I just brushed it off, and I didn't end up saying anything to him. And the moral of that story really is that when women do step out and show assertiveness, a lot of times they can be met with aggression from those who feel threatened by their leadership, or they're taking the opportunity to be assertive in that position. And I think women specifically deal with this on a daily basis in the workplace. And so it can be very difficult for them to toe the line of wanting to be liked, but at the same time wanting to be a leader and to show those assertive characteristics and traits.
So let's hone in on this particular challenge that women face in the workplace. The backlash that you just described perfectly in your story. So many women experience this backlash, right? How do we better combat the backlash without capitulating, diminishing our power, or as Michelle Obama famously says, when they go low, we go high?
Absolutely. I think, again, it really just goes back to defining your own success metrics. When you go into a situation, if your expectation is to come out of it with everyone having a glowing recommendation of you and loving you, then you're going to have a really hard time with the outcome, because that is just never going to happen. I think it's accepting that as women, we're not necessarily always going to be well liked, even though there is the standard that we should be. It's fighting back against that and just choosing to be a leader if that's what you feel called to do, and be assertive over necessarily being the one who is the most popular or the most well liked in that social circle.
To bring it back to the challenge that women consistently face in being assertive at work, how can women of different ethnicities experience these expectations around utilizing assertive and confident behaviors in the workplace?
Yeah, I think women from different backgrounds experience the challenge of assertiveness in completely different ways. As a white woman, I don't necessarily experience the challenges of being assertive in the same way as a Black woman might, or a Latina woman. I think that what goes along with that is that there are a lot of stereotypes that are assigned to certain marginalized groups that go along kind of as a double-edged sword in terms of how women are perceived in the workplace. And so someone who is a Black woman who's exemplifying assertiveness may fear that she's being pegged as aggressive. Someone who is an Asian woman, who are thought to be stereotypically as more submissive, may not be taken seriously in a leadership role. For Latina women, I think a lot of times they're assigned the attribute of being hot-headed or fiery, and so they may fear that by exemplifying assertive qualities that they're going to be assigned that other stereotype quality as well. And so as a white woman, I think it's important to recognize my own privilege, and that there have been women who have been fighting in leadership positions in the workplace for decades before me who look like me. It's more important now than ever for women and white women and all of the allies in the workplace to not only recognize that they are coming from an advantaged situation, but also to take responsibility for stepping up and being an ally to women who don't necessarily have those additional barriers in front of them.
Well, on that note, how can our entire audience grow into their power to be more assertive?
Yeah, I think it starts with asking yourself what your authentic goals are when it comes to your career trajectory, your desire to be a leader in the workplace, and then allowing yourself to go after those situations where you may feel a little bit embarrassed or underqualified or awkward because you are asserting yourself into a position that you have never been before. And a good example of this in my life is when I was, again, in that first role out of college, and I was representing our company at an organization that represented female entrepreneurs. And we were actually sponsoring the organization, and I volunteered to put on a skit by myself where I was representing multiple characters in front of a group of over 60 women who were fabulous and doing amazing things in their careers. And I can't tell you how many people came up to me after that and just told me that they admired my courage in that situation. And it just made me feel really good, because I think a lot of women see those opportunities and don't necessarily grasp them for what they are because of that fear of being embarrassed or feeling underqualified. And so, in my own life, I've made it a point to always chase and pursue those situations, because you never know what that door is going to unveil. So that's what I think it comes down to.
I love that the women came up to you afterwards and were supporting you in your bravery to put on a skit in front of a bunch of strangers. That's wonderful. Well, finally, Leanna, are there any resources that you would recommend for our listeners to help us develop our ability to be more confident in our assertiveness in the workplace?
I think it starts, of course, with knowing yourself. And so if you have read anything by Michael Cornwell, you'll know that he is a genius when it comes to growing in your ability to express emotional intelligence. He really focuses on it from a rational emotive behavioral therapy lens. And so it's really looking at yourself and your traits and your values and understanding them for exactly what they are. So I would definitely recommend that first off. And the second book I would recommend is The Likeability Trap by Alicia Menendez. She really focuses on this sometimes difficult to navigate issue of wanting to be liked in the workplace as a female, and then understanding that the more assertive and the more leadership that you convey, the less liked you'll most likely be. And it's really interesting because she takes a scientific approach to analyzing the data when it comes to female likability and their success in leadership roles. She really goes deeper than not caring about what other people think. She goes and expresses what it means to actually just take advantage of the situations that you're presented in the workplace. So I think that's like another great book. And then I think another one is just a practical tip that you can always practice is the way you speak, I think, conveys your leadership ability as well as your assertiveness in a great way. And so just practicing using a clear tone, speaking with confidence, and not being afraid to speak out for your authentic beliefs.
Wonderful. Thank you, Leanna. Now, my biggest question for you today. Are you a fan of Halloween?
I am. We actually just spooked up our house.
All right. Well, if you're anything like me, you're probably already working on your classic Halloween movies like The Addams Family and Beetlejuice, and of course, The Nightmare Before Christmas. Now, Halloween is right up my alley, and I am here for the spooky fun facts today, especially when they are related to women. So I'm going to be sharing with you 3 age-old Halloween traditions that our fellow female pioneers invented way back in the day. But first, a quick history lesson on women and the albeit outdated meaning of Halloween to them. Apparently, one of the purposes for Halloween back in the day was for women to determine their destiny with future spouses. Pretty weird, yes. All right, so Halloween, also known as All Hallows Eve, was originally a 3-day celebration dedicated to remembering the dead, including saints, martyrs, and the dearly departed. Strangely, out of this came a tradition where on the eve of Halloween, women could increase the likelihood of finding love. So, Halloween game numero uno, mirror games. In the 19th century, women believed that if you stood in front of a mirror and ate an apple, the mirror would present you with an image of your true love as you recite the words, "Round and round, O star so fair, you travel and search out everywhere. I pray you, sweet stars, now show to me this night who my future husband shall be." Fun fact, if the mirror shows you a skill, you're destined to kick the bucket before marrying anyone. Other mirror lore includes souls being cotton mirrors, or how mirrors can reflect your soul back at you, giving rise to the superstition about breaking mirrors giving you 7 years of bad luck, because that's how long it supposedly took for your soul to heal. So although we don't see too many women reciting poems to themselves in the bathroom anymore to beckon their soulmates, we do still see various mirror symbolism that have taken the form of some of our favorite Halloween mascots, like Bloody Mary, the Candyman, and even Moaning Myrtle, for all you Harry Potter fans. Halloween game numero dos, bobbing for apples. Legend goes that each apple in the bucket represented all of a woman's suitors. The apple that she caught and bit into was supposedly her future spouse. So to make this tradition even more of an elaborate fortune-telling game, it is said that if a woman peels the skin off of each of the apples she catches, it will reveal her future spouse's initials. Now, these ladies were clearly not messing around with the daisies and the he loves me not routine. They quite literally dove in and bared their teeth in the name of love. Game numero tres. And certainly not the least, the carving of the fall pumpkin. In preparation for All Hallows Eve, women decked out their homes and towns with lavish decorations, including the carved pumpkin. Women would carve up the pumpkins out of our favorite fall squash and fill them to the brim with nuts and fruits and other delights. As the night concluded, they would then eat the filled pumpkins before bed to espouse dreams of their future husbands. So the original intent of pumpkin carving was to create beautiful decorations with colorful fruits. And that being said, our modern day pumpkin carving has taken a slightly different form, right? Now we open up Pinterest and see the images ranging from bats to cats to Homer Simpson eating a donut. Regardless of the way you choose to express your pumpkin creativity, the old pumpkin carving practice was started by Celtic women in Ireland who used to use these scary images to ward off evil spirits. Personally, my favorite of these three games would probably be the mirror games because I do find a bit of truth in it. If you look in the mirror right now, I know that you will find true love because who you'll see is a remarkable, powerful, capable individual who is able to love you more than anyone else ever could. And it's yourself, by the way. Might be a little corny, but it's true. All of us could use a confidence boost every now and then, and I hope y'all got some of that today. Thank you, Leanna, for taking the time to share your energy and expertise with our audience.
Absolutely. It was so fun to be here, and I'm excited for all the women who are listening to this and hopefully gain some tactical skills about what it means to be assertive in the workplace.
I hope so too. If you liked our show, please subscribe and share it with a friend who you think might want to learn a little bit more about being assertive or being a badass leader or just want a little bit of femme support on their professional journey. Until next time, lean into your authenticity and your natural ability to be assertive. It'll pay off.